and welcome to today's episode of Show Me Your Hustle. Today I'm interviewing Chris Rack. Chris, share your story with us. What are you up to?
Oh, I'm a recent founder. I've been officially a founder for a whopping 40 days now, I think. Um, so after about 18 years on the corporate side,
Mhm.
working for the man, I finally stepped out and started a company called Mockingbird.
I love it. I am so excited to hear your story. Um, what brought you to this point? After 18 years, what was your turning point?
Well, I tell this story quite often. I was most recently the CEO of about a $50 million company end of last year, and my path to there was fairly traditional. I'm still
Mhm.
on the younger side of an executive, so I'm only 43. So my path was fast, but still traditional. I was a seller, a sales leader. I was a CRO who grew a company from about 6 million to 140 million,
Wow.
bootstrapped from 2016 to 23. I got my chance to be a CEO, and to be honest with you, I just really didn't like it all that much. Um, there's everybody's like whoa, like it's one of those things where you spend the better part of 20 years trying to get to this spot, and then you like get
Yeah,
to the spot and you're like, well, that's really not what I thought it was going to be. um,
right.
and it could be company people, it could be a whole bunch of stuff that impacted that, but so I don't want to ever say I'd write off being a CEO again, but I realized that like I was the happiest in the very early stages of that CRO role when it was 3
Yeah.
million and scrappy and fast and like and so I said I want to do that again, but this time I'd like to do it for myself and not for
Mhm.
somebody else. So that's how
Yeah,
I ended up with Mockingbird.
that's awesome. What can you tell us a little bit about Mockingbird and what your goals are for the year?
Mockingbird is a relatively new technology. It leverages conversational AI to
Hmm.
make phone calls and send text messages for the purposes of following up on leads for businesses. So those businesses can range from very large enterprise software companies that are doing tens of thousands of leads a month to very small businesses like cheerleading gyms and uh, IT service providers. But the gap is there are a lot of companies that generate a lot of leads, and the
Yeah,
only tool to really follow up with them these days is email.
right.
And email is struggling from a conversion rate perspective, and I think there's a big gap there that Mockingbird can fill. My goals for the rest of the year are really just trying to. I have such a big TAM. As I
Yeah.
mentioned, it's my TAM is really anybody who gets leads, which is almost all of the B2B companies out there, which is a good
Right.
thing. But
Right.
I'm not heavily funded. I'm a bootstrapped startup, so really trying to identify where my best ICP is to start, and
Yeah.
then attack the hell out of it, and then kind of expand from there.
That's awesome. Um, where, okay, so maybe diving back into your past as a CEO, what would you say were like your biggest, not tech stack, but personal stack that you relied on to maintain your hustle? Like books, podcasting, working out, like how did you maintain everything?
So it really changed for me in 2021, to be honest with you. My 40th birthday, I was just over 300 pounds. Um, I, 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 I guess you would say I sacrificed a lot of my 30s for work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was a 12, 14 hour a day guy. I traveled a lot, and I didn't live the healthiest, and I kind of
Right.
just, I just kind of got tired of it, and I ended up so like my biggest hack is I walk.
Mm-hmm.
So I started walking, and I just at that particular time I started watching what I eat a little, really kind of strictly with the goal of kind of getting down, and then I
Yeah.
slowly started lifting, and so like that's been
Mm-hmm.
my personal hack, and I still walk, as pretty much every day.
Yeah.
In the winter, it's tougher in Chicago because it's cold and miserable, and I
Yeah.
have to be on a treadmill, and I don't like it. But
Right.
once the weather breaks, I usually walk. from about 5 a.m. to about 6:30 or 7, so about 5 miles every morning. Some days I listen to podcasts and I learn.
Hmm.
Some days I just listen to music. Some days I don't do anything and I just let my
Yeah,
brain think.
I love that. What has been the biggest leadership lesson you've learned so far in your career?
Oh, there's a whole lot. Um, the biggest one would probably be that you can't please everyone. It's not leadership's job to, and I think a lot of employees, it's going to be a
Hmm.
tough lesson for them to learn, especially up and coming generations, right? It
Yeah.
is not the company's job to make you happy.
Hmm.
It is your job to make you happy. It is the company's job to give you the tools, opportunity to put yourself in a position to be successful. And once I realized that it is not my job to make every employee happy, and also that it's impossible. Things were a lot easier for me because I ended up kind
Hmm.
of reaching that zone where it's like, hey, I'm going to do what I know is best, and there are going to be some
Yeah.
people who are not going to come for the journey, and that's okay.
Right. Right. Would you say that has helped you avoid burnout and manage stress as a leader?
Yeah, it took me 42 and a half years to get there, but I've been a lot better with it now. Like
Yeah.
I've done burnout, right?
Yeah.
And I think people throw that word around a little bit loosely, to be candid with you, right?
Yeah.
Like burnout is again, I've had days towards the end of my career where you don't get out of bed burnout, right?
Hmm.
Where people start asking you if you're okay burnout, right?
Right. Right.
So I've been there and I've done that, and I guess finding that balance of just saying like, hey, you just wake up, be kind, work hard, and that's really what you can do. And
Yeah.
the cards are usually going to fall where they fall.
Right. All right. I want to shift a little bit to talk about Mockingbird. What do you feel like the market trends and disruptions are saying about where you're going? Are there any concerns or red flags as you're 40 days in, you're starting to build your roadmap?
No, I mean for me, it's just how can I go fast? How fast can I go?
Yeah.
It's going to get really, really competitive, which is
Right.
good for me. Competition means I'm in the right place. So the more startups I see pop up in the space, the more startups I see funded, and voice AI and text AI and conversational AI is
Hmm.
there are so many use cases that
Right.
it's I'll have my partner or a friend will be like, oh, did you see these guys pop up? And I'll be like, I'm sure they did. There's going to
Right.
be there's going to be about 150 other ones in the next 6 months too, and I expect it.
Totally.
And but I kind of again that means like I'm in the right spot, and like and if you look at it like companies like Gusto Payroll and Rippling and Deal,
Hmm.
like they've
Yeah.
disrupted the payroll industry
Totally.
where like one would say that ADP and all of the incumbents had that market locked up 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
I could probably get most frustrated when people are like, "Oh, isn't AI crowded?" And I'm like, "We haven't even scratched the surface
Right.
of
It's
this
like
of the
what, two
surface
years
of the
old at
nail.
this point? Yeah.
We haven't even not even close. That's my biggest fear is I don't want to say being too slow, but
Hmm.
like just waffling too much, right? It's
Yeah.
when you have a TAM that's as big as it is, it's just so hard to make the decision of like
Where to
where am I
go?
going to go, and
Yeah.
then and then also like that fear of making the wrong decision.
Yeah. I think that's the thing with being at bootstrap too is where is the fine line between scale and growth and decision making, and how do you keep up with all of that? So with staying bootstrapped, how do you plan to scale fast enough?
So I leverage a lot of. I mean, obviously use my own technology.
Hmm.
So I leverage Mockingbird to, when
Yeah.
I try to generate leads cost effectively at the top of the funnel. And then I use my own tech to follow up and kind of, some of them I follow up with like hey, let's have a meeting. Some of them I follow up with more of a incentivized survey type vibe to collect data
Yeah.
about them if they're a bigger account. Um,
Right.
I use a fair bit of AI and automation. So like one thing I've just been doing is building like little micro apps. Um,
Okay.
for my target audience and kind of putting them out there on my LinkedIn and just kind of putting them out there
Oh
via
yeah.
email as more of
Mhm.
an inbound flow versus trying to do all the outbound myself.
Right, right. What do you think your biggest you talked a lot about your TAM as being massive, and what do you think your biggest risk is this year?
Well, I'm not taking any salary, so my first biggest risk is going broke, and
Right.
kind of like that whole part of it.
Hmm.
But I mean, the biggest risk is not my biggest risk is not getting a laser focused ICP nailed in and
Hmm.
ready to go.
Okay.
Right? That's just it's a little bit redundant to say, but if I and again, it's tough for me because I'm built of the mindset that I think I can do everything. So I keep taking like, oh, I can do that. I can
Yeah.
find the time to test out this audience. I can find the time to do this. I can find the time to do that. And at least I know a little bit more with my age that I just can't. So the next 60, 90 days are going to be really, really getting in deep to like a varied segment of proof of concepts across different
Hmm.
industries and use cases for those industries, and then
Right.
tracking performance and budgets and all of that, and then figure out where I can start developing and I guess niching down a bit. So the goal is to eventually you'll get to the site and there'll be Mockingbird for Mockingbird for B2B SaaS, Mockingbird for healthcare, Mockingbird for fleet, and
Right.
Mockingbird for auto, just depending on the order to which I build for and attack those industries.
Right. All right, this is my favorite question ever. And we'll wrap up with this. If you could go back and give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Oh, that one, I mean, for me, I have a tattoo on my left foot. I have a lot of them, but I have a tattoo on my left foot that says, be you, they'll adjust. I spent the better part of my teens, my 20s, and my 30s like trying to fit into someone else's mold of what they thought I should be. In my
Yeah.
teens and college years, it was a high school and college person. And
Yeah.
what was I a jock? Was I a something? In my 20s, it was like that like work hard, play hard, successful sales guy. Who
Yeah.
was tough and gritty and mean
Right.
and like that. In my 30s, it was like I guess you would say a fake executive, like talking about buzzwords and going on big trips and golfing and all that, right? And then I finally realized that like I don't want that none of that is me, and I'm
Right.
when I'm just me, and unapologetically me, I'm most successful, and the people who work with me, be, even I guess you would say in spite of, and again, and I probably got there about 37, and that's when the line in the sand is when I started getting more heavily tattooed because I always wanted
Yeah.
to, and I feared that it would prevent me from moving up the chain and
Yeah.
all of that. And that was the line where I just said I don't care.
Yeah. The
I'm gonna be
stereotypes that we
I'm
grow
gonna be
up with.
me, and if somebody doesn't want to hire me to do a role that I know I'm great for, because of that, then that's not somebody I want to work with or for anyway.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Chris, thank you so much. Anything you want to leave our listeners with?
No, I think that was great.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm excited to watch Mockingbird soar this year, and I'm excited for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate you having me on.